You know, when I was first born, the first thing I said was, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel and review every Billy Joel song. And after 31 years of procrastination in my life, I'm finally ready to do it. So today we're gonna start with Cold Spring Harbor, which I'll admit going in is not my favorite. In fact, it might be my least favorite Billy Joel album. Might also be Billy Joel's least favorite Billy Joel album. But we gotta start somewhere, and why not at the beginning? Alright, so before we get into the songs, I should probably at least explain how my song rating system works. It's a little bit different from your 1 to 5 stars or your 0 to 10s that you commonly see out there. I use a 20 to 80, which that range for me just represents how I think about music better than those other ones. One thing to note is that my scale's pretty generous. I think of music the way I think of pizza. Like, even bad pizza's still pretty enjoyable, right? So a 50 represents a song that I would go out of my way to listen to in my free time. There's no shame in being a 30 or 40. It's just something that, you know, I would probably enjoy more in passing. It's not as enjoyable as an active listen for me, but it's by no means a negative experience. And below that, in the 20s, that's a song that I mostly don't like. But that doesn't mean it totally lacks artistic merit. It just means I don't personally enjoy it very much. And then we have our Never Go Here Simba tier, which that's below the line of artistic merit. Basically any music that exists down there, I just feel is like a net negative for our culture. So yeah, that's how the system works. Let's get into the song list here, starting with
She's got a way about her.
Right off the bat, we have a hard one to rate because there's two versions of it. There's the version that is the opening track of this album, and then there's the 1981 version that's a live recording from Songs in the Attic, which became a hit. For me personally, I much prefer the 1981 version, largely because of the vocal performance. There's not very many recordings of Billy Joel at this point in his career, like live recordings of his performances, but there are a few, and the ones that I found, he is still employing this falsetto.
She's got a way about her. I don't know what it is, but I know that I can't live without her.
And as far as I know, there's no mastering error that causes that to get sped up. So yes, the mastering error is having an effect here, but you know, I kind of just think he just hadn't found his voice yet. It's a pretty song. I like the song, don't get me wrong. It's very Paul McCartney, it's very George Harrison. However, if there is a flaw to be found in this song, you know, the lyrics can maybe be a little overly sentimental, maybe a little overly sappy, especially with that "million dreams of love surround her" line. I think it comes across better in the Songs in the Attic version. You know, it sounds like he's more comfortable both as a singer, but also just sounds more comfortable in the relationship, frankly, in the song. Whereas in the Cold Spring Harbor version, I think it comes across as a little bit more like simping, unfortunately. It's hard for me to return to this version of the song when there's a far superior version of it that's recorded by the same artist. Probably like a 55 minus. Songs in the Attic live version, that's a 70.
You can make me free. You can make me smile.
I'm just now realizing I'm blocking my my records here. Next song on our list, You Can Make Me Free. Probably most controversial edit from the 1971 original version of Cold Spring Harbor to the 1983 remaster, because it's basically cut in half. The original version of this song featured like a 3-minute long like jam session with guitar solos. All sorts of rock and roll abandon being thrown to the wind here. It's a real heater. I'm sure there's a lot of Billy Joel fans that are quite miffed that this epic jam session was cut. And I gotta say, the first time I heard the jam session, I was pretty enthralled by it, but I think after the novelty wore off, I kind of realized that, yeah, this just sounds like a poor man's version of the outro from Hey Jude, with the McCartney-esque bluesy scream singing and the crashing piano chords and just the general epic feel of it. Problem is that Billy doesn't really pull it off, and instead a lot of the singing sounds like Paul McCartney was running barefoot through a field of Lego. I mean, that's honestly what it sounds like to me. I mean, with the jam session removed, it's just kind of. I mean, it's not a terrible song. It's definitely not a song in Billy's discography that I return to very often. It's quite mid. I would say that it's like a 35. Yeah, for me, this is probably the best song on the record. I really enjoy the driving piano part in this song. It gives it a lot of very satisfying forward momentum. Like She's Got Away, it's another one of those Billy Joel songs that found a bit of later life thanks to Songs in the Attic. But I don't think Everybody Loves You Now suffers as much to its Songs in the Attic counterpart as She's Got Away does. Another thing I like about it is that a lot of this album is kind of very self-pitying, and a lot of the acidity that we'd see in later Billy Joel songs like Big Shot kind of shows up here, and I think it adds a little bit of much-needed grit to the track list in this album. Yeah, it's not like Billy's most amazing song or anything, but I do think it is the strongest track on this record. It's a strong 55. It's sad. It's a sad song. When I was younger, listening to this album, I would always question who Judy was. Was it a friend of Billy's? Maybe like there was like a weird love triangle going on. During the research for this video, I found out that it's actually Billy's live-in sister, who is actually his cousin. That whole situation sounds complicated, but point being, it's his sister, we'll say. She's a pretty important character in Billy's life, from what it sounds like in this song. So there's definitely some poignancy there to that. However, it's definitely one of his feel sorry for yourself songs on this record. Because of that, I think the lyrics can be almost a little bit too self-pitying on this track. For that reason, it makes it a little hard for me to return to it all that often. I do like the instrumental, though. Billy Joel, largely thought of as a piano-based composer, but here we get an instrumental that is based in acoustic guitar. These acoustic guitar gestures that are very ballet-like. And Billy himself has compared this motif to like a Tchaikovsky piece. Overall, though, it's a fairly unremarkable work in the Billy Joel canon. I'd say it's probably like...
Once upon a time in the land of misty satin dreams, there stood a house.
Yeah, this has got to be one of the weirdest lyrics Billy ever wrote. It has been said that Billy wrote these songs on Cold Spring Harbor not for himself to perform, but for other artists to potentially hear and perform for themselves. More of a showcase. And I feel like this song is like a perfect example of this philosophy in action here on this album. Because of all the songs on here, this one just really doesn't feel like a Billy Joel song at all. In my head, I view Billy Joel as more of this wisecracking New York guy who hung out in like jazz clubs in like sketchier parts of Manhattan and was an amateur boxer. He's kind of like a rough and tumble, hard scrabble kind of guy. With some of these lyrics on here, like the wooded glade and the land of misty satin dreams and everything like that, it conjures this image of Billy Joel for me, like skipping through a field of gillyflowers wearing pantaloons. And that's just not how I think of him at all. So for that reason, the song has something of a comedic effect on me, unintentionally, which is rarely a good thing for a song. However, I will say that the piano part in this song is awesome. It's a really good piano part. And it also has like some kind of weird like harpsichord stuff going on in the background too that's kind of distracting. Yeah, I don't know about this one, guys. I would say this one's like... it's tough because I do like that piano part. Now, I'll be kind. I'll give it like a 35, but I'll give it a plus because the piano part is just too good.
Turn around, turn around.
The song can definitely pass you right on by during a playthrough without you really noticing it, which is both a good and bad thing. It is pretty easy to listen to. There's nothing offensive about it, really. He sings more like I'm used to Billy Joel singing on this song. This song represents the period of time where Billy's first wife, Elizabeth, disappeared after her infidelity to her first husband, John Small, was discovered. And Billy is singing out to her, to turn around and come back, and she's been gone too long. Not to worry, 1971, Billy, she does return, though a future version of yourself might not want her to, but that's a story for a different time. Yeah, this song just kind of glides over my brain like water over a bowling ball. Yeah, it's like a 40.
Nice spare!
Boom! Let there be light. It's daytime now. Yeah, this one's probably the worst song on the album. I mean, the organ is just kind of a little goofy sounding. The lyrics are pretty pedestrian. I mean, I don't even think he writes a second verse. I think he just changes like one word. But anyway, yeah, this is probably like the first oof burger of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. When I first listened to the song with my girlfriend, she asked if we were at a baseball game. And, you know, that's pretty much a perfect description of the sound here. It also comes at a very awkward time in the album because it's between Turnaround and Tomorrow is Today, which Turnaround is about his girlfriend leaving him, and then Tomorrow is Today is about his period of major depression after that time. But in the middle, you just get this kind of corny love ballad, and it doesn't seem like it belongs there. Yeah, it turns out incorporating the organ from the Monty Python intermission into your mix doesn't exactly make for the best love song. Yeah, this is kind of a rough one. I'd say it's like a 25.
People tell me life is sweeter.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough song to talk about for a whole bunch of reasons. The most obvious being that this is kind of like Billy Joel's farewell note to life, if you know what I mean. I've seen a lot of Billy Joel fans rate this as one of their favorite Billy Joel songs, and I just frankly don't really understand why. I'm not saying it's like a bad song. It definitely has its artistic merit. The piano part, quite evocative. There's a lot of feeling behind his singing. I can definitely tell the song was meaningful for him at the time. However, you just kind of want to reach out to the Billy in this song and just be like, it gets better, man. Like, you become like one of the highest selling artists of all time. You marry a supermodel. You become an icon and a legend, and you end up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And you play the final show ever at Shea Stadium with Paul McCartney. Like, you know, Billy like never returns to the song, and it's clear to see why. Like, it's obviously very painful for him to think back on this period, and it probably doesn't reflect how he feels about life anymore. And because it is about such a sensitive topic, it feels a little bit weird to rate it. It makes it hard to rate. Another thing that makes it hard to rate is the fact that it's severely changed from the 1971 version to the later version. In the original, there's like a lot of string instrumentals, and I did it in the 1983 remaster, it's just Billy on the piano. I'm not sure which version I prefer, frankly. It's not a song I like listening to all that often. It's just kind of a bummer, man. I can definitely understand why someone would enjoy this song like on a purely musical level. The only musical problem I have with it is the bridge, where he kind of dips down into his low Ray Charles-y blues voice and then back up into the higher register. I don't think that part really works.
A lot of life and I'm damn sick of living it. I keep hoping you will pass my way.
I don't know. I had a really hard time giving this one a rating. I'll just give it a 45 and call it a day.
When you're that age, you're going from adolescence into adulthood. You become so self-absorbed that your head can literally go up your ass, and you got to pull it out, because if you stay there too long, it's not a good atmosphere.
It's pretty. It's very pretty. Would I choose to listen to this in my free time over like an actual Chopin Nocturne or an arabesque from Debussy? Probably not, but it's still a decent composition. I'd put this on like a study playlist or something, or a go to sleep playlist, like in a good way. Not much else to say about it. Just a pretty piano piece. Like a 50. So now we've come to the album closer, and I gotta say, I actually think it's a pretty decent way to close out this album. I think what I like about it is that it's a song that's looking forward. It's looking forward to a better time, a future time that we know as the audience will be better for Billy. You know, we have these times in our life, maybe like at the end of a graduation or at the end of a job or whatever it may be, but sometimes there's these very clear signifiers in life that tell us, hey, we're at the end of this chapter, and we have to turn the page to another one in our lives. And to me, this song does a very good job of invoking that feeling. It's probably not one I'd like return to outside the context of listening to this album, but yeah, I'd say it's like a strong 45 though. Alright, so final verdict on Cold Spring Harbor. I think it's in contention for Billy Joel's weakest album. Mostly just because it doesn't sound like a Billy Joel record. He doesn't sing like Billy Joel on this record. He doesn't write like Billy Joel on this record. And he doesn't even look like Billy Joel on this record. He looks like Joe Dirt. I know this album has a lot of advocates among Billy Joel fans. And some have even tried to take the 1971 mix and correct the speed on it, and I appreciate all those efforts. But for me, this would be the last record I would recommend for anyone trying to get into Billy Joel. I think a lot of the appreciation for it among his fans is mostly just the novelty of looking at him in this very embryonic stage. Yeah, Billy himself doesn't really recommend you listen to it.
You know, you have to pay a lot of attention to this one, but it is in the set, and it's the embryonic Billy Joel, I suppose.
This album's a 40 for me. The technical issues really hold it back, and the writing is below Joel's average. It's a cool listen for those dedicated Joel fanatics, though. Try it after listening to all his other stuff.
Human music. I like it.
I do plan on making more of this. Next up will be Piano Man. I'm not sure that's the video I'm going to work on next. There are a few other ideas floating around up here that I might want to try out first. But yeah, I do plan on eventually revisiting Billy Joel at some point in the future. And if people enjoy this for some reason, I will continue to make more. So yeah, if you do want to see more, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one, and leave a comment. Yeah, until then.